Get to know all your favorite VRChat DJs all in one place. This is VRCDJ Live.
What a very fun time to be here on the program, of course, and we here every Thursday to get you all the latest, greatest of what's happening within our community here on VRCDJ Live. I'm Rob Roman, your host, and of course, we talk to everybody within our community, and even today, I believe our next guest here on the show is just getting into VR, so it's getting really exciting. We're going to have a lot of talk to our guests today, but of course, as you already know, we talked about with all sorts of DJs and promoters and club owners and VJs and everyone that kind of helps our community grow. And of course, it's an interactive show being live, VRC DJ Live, and that's why we have you guys here in chat to be able to ask all of your important questions to get you the tools to succeed, to get you what you need, and while we get carry on here too. And we're leading into a whole new month, which I cannot wait to tease towards the end of the programming here today. But starting off next month, we have a very special guest here today. They're award-winning. They're a part of an award-winning public and self-funded radio station based in Seattle, Washington, serving over 150,000 weekly listeners. If you can think about that geo filter, under the tags of KNHC, the longest running dance radio station in the country, believe it or not. And a real fun fact that we're going to get into a little bit later today is it's all run and based out of a high school. That was the one key thing that for our guests, I was like, what? We're kind of getting into that, but please welcome to VRC DJ Live, Harmony Soleil.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited that we were able to get you into VR too, because like this entire process, it's still fairly new to you. The fact that there's an economy in here, there's everything kind of picking up in here, and you chose a very good model, no doubt, because you're either a cat girl in here or you're a bunny girl. Okay,
cool. Yeah, I would have been a black cat girl if I'd had the knowledge to change into that, but the bunny I'm cool with.
Yeah,
the bunny's very cute.
It's always very fun, especially in here too, because it's like we occasionally we get the whole question of like why am I dressed as a girl if I'm a guy. You were able to see some of our staff who are also rabbits too, and then Zev is just a guy, but it's kind of just a preference in here. Be able to showcase your true colors, and if you want to be a part of the fur community or the anime community, or if you want to just right now we're talking about basic cubes, like you could become a cube. You can just be a cube, or like there's a member of our community who's a cheeseburger, and he's just kind of
I love it.
He's just like our cheeseburger guy.
Yeah, why not? I love it. Yeah, I was a funny little crow guy, and then I accidentally was messing around with all the different avatars and stuff, and I ended up on Bunny Girl, but she's super cute, so I'm good. I'm excited to be here and just see what you all have created. I mean, it really feels like I'm in a radio station. It's so awesome. You even have like the little box with all the cords, and it's really great. You guys have done an amazing job.
It's very fun too, because I think a lot of people, when they're thinking about virtual reality, they're just constantly thinking about maybe the Oculus Quest, because that's obviously a really hot topic right now, or even the fact of the Apple Vision Pro. I know when we first met up in Miami, I was having a conversation with Lauren Padman of DimMac and Henry and Laidback Luke, and they were explaining. I was like, yeah, we're doing virtual reality now, and we have these headsets, and they were like, yeah, we did virtual reality too with the Apple Vision Pro, and we're just sitting over here like, oh, like that's a little different than what's going on in here. But I mean, for baby steps when it comes to things. You were even saying how you own an Oculus Rift as well. How did you even get that?
That was actually gifted to me a while ago. I think it was during the pandemic, and I messed just a little bit with it, but I have to say it kind of freaked me out, because it was like, if you have migraines or, whatever, don't, be careful. And I do get migraines. So I like pulled it out once, and I'm like, no, I don't, this freaks me out. But I love the technology. Like I love, learning about new stuff and learning new technology. But I just didn't have anyone to show me or teach me. And I just felt like, oh, I can't.
Yeah.
But I love this. Like, this is super awesome. I can just get in here in a much more accessible way. I'm just on. I did have to borrow a Windows machine though, which is the only thing, and can't use my MacBook.
It's
but,
it's funny how like right now within VRChat's lifetime that you can have every other thing to be in virtual reality except for a Mac. They're still kind of working on that, but you can even get on virtual on VRChat with like a Steam Deck or your iPhone or an Android.
Wow. Yeah. Super cool. So work on the Mac side of things, but that'll be easier because I have to give this laptop back to my friend. But yeah, I love how easy it is to get in here and like hang out with you and be in a station. I'm at home though. So I just really cool.
It's like you literally haven't really left anywhere really, except for the really cool looking glass panels that we have over where our producers sit as well. But
it's so good.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure in the future, hopefully, we'll get you in here to be able to see some more rave things. I know in the past, this past month has been super busy, especially with the transition between doing stuff in school as well as the programming that you have. Which listen, I didn't have enough room to like put down all your titles, but interim, program director, promotions, marketing director, music director, advanced radio instructor. Tell us about what's going on. I mean, I know money's a little tight, but like I've never seen someone wear so many hats at the radio station before.
Yeah, I like to joke. I have a big head, so it's okay. I can put all of them on top of each other. But yeah, it's just been a pretty interesting time at our station. We have a lot planned that I can't even discuss yet. That's happening. But we have come off of a pretty great year so far. We had consecutive, the 3 or 4 highest rating books in our history. And it does go down a little bit when we do our fund drives, which we do, similar to NPR or, another station, public station, similar to that, right? We talk, we ask for money, but we play music. We try to keep it light and fun. Because that works better for people than like going on and on and on and on and on asking for money. But we're bouncing back up. Pride Month's always a really great time for us. We love to be out in the community. Last night, we actually were out at a farmer's market a little bit north of Seattle in Kenmore. They had a Pride event, and I think it's like the city manager had reached out to me on Instagram in January or something. It was like, can you bring the booth and some music? And I'm like, of course. And that was actually one of the closest events we've ever been to where we physically are in North Seattle. So that was awesome to just get out. And then this weekend, we've got DJs out for Pride. We're going to be at Seattle Pride under the Space Needle. So if you're in Seattle and you're coming out to Pride, come find the big pink C895 booth in real life. And we'll be there all day. And that's incredible. That's like, 300,000 people or whatever come out for that. So we're always really busy in Pride and into the summer. There's some Pride events in July that we do. And we got some big stuff planned in August that we haven't announced yet. So I can't talk about it yet, but it's going to be a big August. That's all I can say at this point. But yeah, a lot of changes. People have left and had to pull back, and they leave their hats on their desks, and then I have to come and put it on and do it for now. But we have some new people coming in to help pretty soon, and yeah, it's just great. We've really built up our team actually. It used to be much smaller when I was a student and went through the program. So it's exciting to have so many different people a part of the station and kind of exploring new avenues, like maybe virtual reality in the future as well. We're super open, and I think being in Seattle allows us to be kind of interested in technology and on that cutting edge. And, I think that's cool. And our listeners look for that as well, where I think Seattle's like the nerdiest city in the country, which I love. So we're here for like new stuff and trying out different ways to connect with listeners, because ultimately that's what we're trying to do. It benefits us financially when we do our fund drives, and also to just get the word out about who C895 is and what we do. And that's why I was excited to come and talk with you as well, because that kind of helps further that and get the word out and, share the insight that I've had over 20 years this year working at C89, including like as a student. So I've seen some things, which is I like to share. So
It's all very interesting too, especially for the fact that we were saying the longest running dance station in the country. You guys were starting back in like 1970, which there's a very lovely video about on your about page that basically showcases all of the different things that had happened within like a 6-minute video. So it's not like you're not there for several hours kind of looking at all the things, but that's really fun that you're able to do all these types of remotes during the summertime, especially for the Pride community and the LGBTQ community. We have a lot of that in here, and we have lots of different groups, as we were kind of mentioning, not very limited to the LGBTQ community with the furs and the furry community, but we were just talking a little bit off stream about how their impact alone, they are able to make convention spaces in here where they can just kind of coexist with everybody within their communities, and they meet up in Atlanta during Furry Week Atlanta, while also raising just a gross amount of money of the sum of some $105,000, especially this year. We also have a lot of different communities in here, like the Trans Academy, that also features safe spaces for a lot of people to come in to learn their processes, ask the questions in a really safe space, but also host like club rave events as well, because why wouldn't you, obviously. But that's really cool that you're able to do these types of remotes during the summertime, especially with all this downtime. I would hate to even ask, you're the one, obviously you're gonna be the one that's coordinating it, but are you also the one that has to go out there and kind of do the thing, or do you also kind of have a ragtag team that helps out with the promotion side?
We do have our former sort of promotions manager, director. She just had to pull back because she had another full-time job. But she's like, I'll come out and help with any events that are on the calendar, kind of when she pulled back. So luckily, we have amazing Lauren who, brings out the tent and does all that great stuff and sets it up. And then, we're small staff, and we don't have a traditional like street team like you would see at another station. We do have Building Up Slowly, a volunteer team that includes listeners who come out and do help us. And we have our students who do come and sit at the booths and make things happen there as well, which is super cool. Even in the summer, they come out, and we've done some events over the spring and late fall. We did Geek Girl Con here in Seattle, which is a lot of fun. We also did Sakura Con recently in Seattle, when our students were so hyped about that. They came out and helped at the booth. We do multiple things. Our general manager will come out and help. Our morning show guy will come and do the booth. Like, we're all kind of there to make sure people are there at the booth, but also we love connecting with our listeners in person, especially during Pride, because that's our community, and it's just like so much fun. So it's a lot of work, but we always really look forward to it every year.
And also talking a lot about your technology side as well. Obviously, yes, Seattle is kind of the nerdy place to be, especially when it comes to anime and technology too. And like, again, as you're in it currently now and, looking around and stuff, like, we can make almost anything possible in here, whether it be a podcast room or podcast show or even an actual radio station. Fun fact, our world creator is actually making something that's a little bit double the size, that hopefully we can get little podcast rooms that other people can join in by doing podcasts, because podcasting in virtual reality and VRChat right now has kind of started to really blow up and become a really massive thing. But as we continue on with the process of understanding, to be able to bridge the gap between radio and technology and podcasting, and even like putting content up on YouTube and on Twitch and stuff like that, we're gonna have a nice little hearty conversation about it, because there are a lot of people that are in this space that are making content in here, and for seasoned professionals like you and I, we're looking and being like, so where's your template? What do you have kind of going off of? And they're just like, oh, we're just sitting on a couch saying, so what's up? And I'm like, no, nice try. But then we'll, kind of get into it. More so, I think everybody here in chat and everyone that's on the program wants to get to know you a little bit more. Tell us a little bit about your roles. Break down the idea of being the program director of a radio station, because I think a lot of people, they don't really think too much about what goes on behind the scenes. They just know, oh, I listen to the talent that is on the air, even comparable to even like the music director role too. So tell us a little bit about your roles and what you do and the process you kind of follow up. We'll follow up with the music director role in just a bit, but just kind of tell us a little bit about the roles that you do.
Yeah, so currently, I was the assistant program director previously. I'm hoping for the full, I've applied for full program director here, so fingers crossed. But essentially, a program director oversees the on-air programming of the radio station. So sort of above them would be the general manager. At our station, we kind of like to think of everybody on a level playing field. But I mean, the general manager is kind of, she's overseeing everything. But the program director specifically deals with everything programmatically that happens on the air. And that's overseeing everything from, on a really wide level, like the software, everything's running, shows are playing, music's playing, to also making sure that the station cohesively sounds well and great. And what I mean by that is the on-air, imaging, like the stuff you hear between songs, the stuff that promotes different shows or events or social media, or if it's our fund drive, they all have a certain point of view. I write all that content and then send it off to our voice guy. Sometimes we also produce stuff, so edit things, put it together in good old Adobe Audition, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Yeah.
Popular since 1992 as far as the splash screen is concerned.
Yeah, and that's what I learned on, people are like, Pro Tools? I'm like, do not say that word to me.
I mean, that's what I figured because you're on a Mac, but yeah.
No. I'm an Adobe Audition gal through and through. And so, program director really like programmatically kind of make sure everything sounds cohesive. And they air check with the on-air staff. So for us, that's a lot with the students, making sure when they're on-air hosting, they sound good. They are, for us, learning what they need to do, how to develop their personalities. And then we have adult volunteers that are on mostly in the evenings who do their own shows, whether that's like a trance show, bass show, an underground, breaks and drum and bass show. So the program director coordinates with them, checks in with them, air checks somewhat with them, and physically makes sure their shows play. And, also does stuff out in the community, interfaces with people, gets new shows on the air, make sure everybody's behaving themselves, and just kind of oversees the general, vibe of the station. Like it all cohesively is coming together as program director, which is a lot, but it's cool. It's kind of like a creative director or a director of a movie, right? You kind of bring everything together to make the vision happen.
It also works really well too with like marketing director and promotions too, because I feel like the program director also kind of has to facilitate the brand and an understanding of what you want to bring. And I'll also say too that being an instructor as well is super helpful too, because coming from someone who's programming the entire station is you already know what you're kind of looking for, as well as talking with the GM and the OM about kind of future in the process of that. Let's talk a little bit more about the music director role of it too, because one of the things that I have experience with CHR and Top 40 Radio, but when it comes to dance and dance relations and stuff like that in EDM, the scene's always kind of changing. So why don't you be able to break down kind of your role as a music director? I will kind of hint towards like Nielsen and Mediabase for those people that have no idea what that is. Go ahead and break that kind of down a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So I fully became music director almost 3 years ago. And I was actually student music director back when I was a student in the program. So it's kind of fun to be like adult music director.
Is that a role that someone can have as a student, be a student music director?
Yeah. So we haven't done it as much in the past couple of years, just as we're kind of restructuring the student side of stuff. But yeah, we had a student music director, we had a student station manager, we had a student operations director, and we do still sort of roughly have that. There's some stuff that's changed in the 20 years since I was there, but I was student music director, and that's like really where I learned a lot of this stuff. Like back in the day, we used to get CDs. I remember getting the Calvin Harris I Created Disco CD,
classic,
which had his first, that was his first album. I remember getting a Katy Perry I Kissed a Girl promo CD, and we promptly threw it in the garbage.
Why?
So we did not get it. We did not get it.
That's fair. Yep.
And so we're like, what is that? It's just like, that's the thing about radio though, is you don't get it always. And then
I mean, that record's kind of a hard push, especially for the first one.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And it was, what? I mean, and then we warmed up to it, but I think we were like, who's this? We had no idea, no context for who Katy Perry was, right? So, but as an adult, it's, I don't throw things in the physical garbage anymore because I don't get physical CDs really anymore. But essentially, I get to listen to a ton of music all the time, which I love. My mom named me appropriately, Harmony. I'm a big music fan. I love dance music. I grew up listening to the radio station. So I have a really good sort of old school sense of 90s and 2000s dance music. I love all that stuff, like Alice DJ and Cascada, and I remember when like Swedish House Mafia and Avicii came out. So I have a really good sense of the industry because I've been in it and a fan of it for so long. And then as music director, I take all that into consideration in not only picking new songs to play, but making sure that our playlist sounds fresh. I move things around every single week through our different categories of music. All stations have different buckets for their music. And that can be complicated. We got to balance it out so it all runs properly and sounds good, and make sure that the program that I use to schedule everything is working properly, because that's a big part of it as well. And then I interface with the industry. So I get to, I do weekly music calls with promoters and record labels. They try to pitch me their tunes, and I have to say no sometimes, which I'm getting better at all the time because it's really hard. Because I very rarely hear music that's like objectively bad. Most songs aren't bad. It's just like, I only have so many slots. And there's a process of how things move through our playlist, and I can't play everything. So it's hard sometimes to have to tell people no, or hey, not yet, or convince me, why should I play this?
And I bet it's also a little challenging too, not to cut you off, but like it must be kind of challenging for having so much expertise on the early aughts, early tens, EDM scenes, very powerful, and the things that you either want to play as a gold or even just like an A or B. Even considering too, with some of the newer songs that keep coming in rotation, it must be kind of difficult to be like, understanding what your audience is constantly listening to or what they want to listen to, even considering the fact that throwbacks are still becoming a hot commodity nowadays, being able to play those really classic early aughts, early tens records, even comparable to some of the new stuff, but even people, wanting to hear those throwbacks. What have you been seeing? Is it a kind of a mix on that, or is it just kind of, are they still wanting all the new tunes?
It's interesting because part of the thing that we always have to balance is like, we love playing new music, and there's so much great stuff out all the time. Like there's so many great new artists. There's, flipping David Guetta putting out 10 songs every single month, right? And I want to play all those new songs. But you mentioned the Nielsen ratings, and we can talk a little more about that. But we got to keep people around, and people do not want to hear an hour of brand new music every single hour of the day. They don't. I listen to my same, Michael Jackson and Fall Out Boy and stuff that I listened to as a teenager and as a kid on Spotify because it's familiar and people love familiarity. So it's a balance between, like you said, like the golds versus A and B songs, which are new and newer, and then the new stuff. And so it's like, as much as I want to play brand new stuff, I also want to keep people around because that impacts our ratings. And, people are only listening, not necessarily to us, but the general feel is for less than 15 minutes at a time. And, we have this idea of programming the perfect quarter hour. And that can't just be all new music because people want familiarity. As much as they say they do, I do get people who are like, play more new stuff. You're not playing enough new stuff. And it's like, okay, but like I can't play all new music all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We have a show that's all new music. My friend does it. It's called Test Spin. And that one is a specialty show of all new music once a week. But yeah, it has to be balanced out with familiarity. There's different shades of that, from the super classic 90s stuff, you know, moving forward in time to things from last year that I play in a recurrent category. I did get an email recently, and this person really felt like we were missing out and we sounded like 2011. And I'm like, 2011 was a great year, so don't diss on 2011. But I went back and looked, and I'm like, I don't even play that many songs from 2011. Like, what are you talking about? And I responded to them, and they didn't email me back, which is fine. But people are always going to hear kind of what they don't like, and they're going to really focus in on it. And so that's hard sometimes to get someone. I'm working so hard to balance out and bringing in this exciting new music and play classics that people enjoy while still feeling fresh. So that one's stuck in my brain right now, because I'm like, 2011? No, it's not. I'm playing lots of new stuff. Leave me alone.
Well, you were also saying too that like you have a lot of programming within a couple of hours in each of the days that features different stylings and different subgenres of EDM and dance. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with that.
Yeah, we have, and that's another thing with that email. I was like, listen, dude, like, you're obviously not listening to a whole day or a whole week of C895, because, you know, we have a show that is all happy hardcore and hardstyle on Friday night. Jiminy Cricket is the DJ that does that. She's incredible. If you guys don't know her, like, please look her up. She does a lot on Twitch and like is like a avatar in real life. It's crazy. She's so amazing. Does a lot of anime conventions and stuff too. And then we also have the Vortex on Saturday nights, which is 3 hours of underground music. It's everything from like organic house to breaks to drum and bass, to jungle. We have bass specific shows. Tonight we have a all bass show. It's at 11 p.m. called The Basement. And that's all hard bass and drum and bass and anything in that category. And then we also have a gothic and industrial show that does sort of the dark wave things. That's Sunday night. That's been going since 1989. And then we have a K-pop show. We have a Latin dance show on Sunday nights. And then we have like melodic trance shows. So we're really covering the whole gamut. So that's why it makes me mad when somebody's like, you're just playing, commercial, whatever. It's like, no, you're not listening. But we like to be open to everything in electronic music because it's so vast.
It's good to hear, especially with that and the programming too, is very good and very refreshing to hear it within our VRChat space too, is that one of the things that we're constantly breaking down is in the past couple of years in the VRChat space alone, drum and bass was just a really key component in here. And everybody, I mean, I feel like almost everybody can get down with drum and bass, and that's not an issue. But a lot of our European friends and the people from the Netherlands and Amsterdam, they're coming in here and they're saying, well, we've always had the drum and bass, we've always had the trance. So being able to translate all of that information over to like the East Coast, even the West Coast kids that are learning about drum and bass, and again, we try to integrate as far as the festivals are concerned. That we do tend to go over. We love to go to Liquidity out in the Netherlands and get to know a little bit about that programming and those types of people, as well as we have our own DJs that also started in here as well, Protostar and Muzz. I know Muzz is kind of going on this big old tour right now, but he has a subgroup in here called Sanctum that he started, and that's kind of where he got a lot of his fandom populated, is in VRChat, just alone being able to promote his brand and the style of music that he performs. But even learning a little bit about that and some of the DJs that we have in virtual reality alone, we talk a lot about hardcore. We talk a lot about dubstep and rhythm and its roles in here. But as popularity kind of continues to kind of, have a little rocky road as far as what is going to be the next greatest thing, being able to taste all those flavors and decide for yourself on what you like is kind of key component. You can always say, David Guetta is always just the cringy term of being like, oh my gosh, he's everywhere. But at the same time too, it's just like, there's a calling for that. There's some people that enjoy that sort of stuff, but you have a lot of the people that are a part of the underground scene that really want to feed more into that type of hard underground scene.
Yeah, totally. And I think sometimes the bigger dance music industry, especially in the US, I think does get a little stuck on, the more commercial sounding dance music, which I love. I'm pro David Guetta, no shade on him at all. But there's so much going on. And yeah, drum and bass, honestly, for me, like, we love it. Our listeners love it, like, love it. And we kind of pride ourselves a little bit at C89 with taking risks. And, there have been a few songs that have gone number one on the charts, on the dance chart in Mediabase. Sub Focus had a number one that was drum and bass. Kenya Gray Strangers was sort of like a light drum and bass feel. And those were songs, that we played, if not the first, one of the first. And people can see, like, oh, Seattle loves drum and bass. That's helpful for the record labels and the promoters to know, and can kind of take it forward, at least in the US, because I think drum and bass is still kind of new here, that jungle sound as well. But we've been like that for a long time. There's a couple other stories I have about some really classic tunes that are kind of our fault, because our listeners love them first, and then the labels are like, wow, Seattle really loves Eiffel 65 on Blue. We should launch it in the US. And then they did, and that's our fault. So sorry, but you're welcome.
I'll also say Eiffel 65 had an opportunity to make a second album, unless they did, and then it just didn't do very well.
I think they did, and I don't think it did very well. Yeah. But basically, like back in the day, it was sales, and we got a CD. I think it was probably a CD. And our program director at the time, who's also the music director, he played it, and we got, this insane response on the phones, because we didn't have texting or anything. And it was just nuts. And they could literally see people buying or asking record stores in Seattle if they could get this song. And back then, the record stores would put out that and communicate with their, buyers and sellers and whatever. And the interest in that song was so great in Seattle, they were like, maybe we could try this in the US. And now, everyone knows that song. It's like a classic dance tune.
Of course.
Everybody. Yeah. So that's pretty cool to see. That's just one of kind of the examples of the station having an impact on the industry, in the wider music industry. That's not even a dance, track like that crossed over. And I have had that confirmed by the people that worked the track, and said, like, yeah, that's how it happened. Like, you guys played it, and we were like, oh shoot, let's do it. So it's cool to know that, radio did have that impact, and I think still does.
Yeah.
So
it's all very interesting too. And of course, this is VRCDJ Live. We're sitting here with program director. I just want to kind of, that always seems like the much taller option of saying of the different hats that you're currently wearing.
Yeah.
Program director Harmony Soleil of C895 in Seattle. And I kind of want to talk a little bit more about just that concept alone too. Not only has C895 been around on the West Coast for what seems like forever. What is it, 50 years? You just celebrated 50 years, right? Or
over 50. I think it's 1971. So, gosh, 54 years.
So obviously, definitely creating a stamp in the entire scene of dance and EDM. And we were kind of talking a lot about our friend Brian Fink, who's over at Evolution Radio. And I know we met up in Miami for the Winter Music Conference. We were talking about how radio makes a really good impact when it comes to presenting music, new music, being able to talk with the community and bridging the gap between the community and record labels and new artists in general, too. How much do you constantly talk with Evolution Radio or any other EDM kind of radio stations within the world or even within our country when it comes to replays, new plays, popularity, popular songs coming down the line?
Yeah, I personally love talking and getting together with people like Brian Fink and the crew over at SiriusXM, because they understand what I'm doing and we talk the same language. But I'd say that we don't generally like speak that often outside of conferences, and we're friends on like Instagram, and Brian Fink and I have our cats and we're like cat
Oh, cats,
parents.
right?
Yeah, he has Tucker and I have Spooky. But yeah, I don't actually like talk with them that much about that sort of stuff. Usually it's through the promoters. They'll tell me, oh, Brian's doing this, and then I'm sure they tell him Harmony's doing this. But a big way that we keep an eye on each other is Mediabase, which we kind of mentioned a little bit earlier. And for me, like I love collaboration and I love being able to see what they're doing. And it's no competition because we're in different markets. We're not, we're doing different stuff in different places, which is fine. So I just love to see what they're doing and get that insight. And Mediabase, which we actually didn't have at C895 until a couple of years ago. So it's pretty new to have all that data. But with Mediabase, I can literally go and see exactly what Evolution is playing. I can go and see what's BPM on SiriusXM is playing. And that's super cool. I never was able to do that in the past. So having that option is exciting. So I think it's that more than like actually asking like, hey, Brian, what are you doing? I sort of hear through intermediaries on my calls or in emails, kind of what other stations are doing. So
it's always interesting to hear this too. I know working at 95 XXX in Burlington, Vermont for a couple of years, the program director there was so hyper fixated on Z100 and what Z100 was doing. It was trying to replicate Z100's imaging and the vibe.
Wow.
And I would say there's two different markets when you're living in Vermont and like the heart of New York, depending on the demographics. Like, it's
so different.
I mean, it's nice that you want to replicate, I think it was like we were at Market 127 or something like that.
Okay.
So it wasn't anywhere near a ballpark of like the top three. But even talking to even KTU for a long time and trying to understand what they got a whole different format kind of going on there too. So understanding that and being able to reach out and see what everybody in the country is kind of playing. Obviously, social media helps out a lot. Mediabase helps out a lot. As well as just kind of listening from everything from like Spotify to SoundCloud to all sorts of different avenues of wondering what's hot and not. Actually doubles the amount of effort that you have to kind of go through as opposed to just receiving demos or something like that. So kind of even in consideration of the fact that your radio station's in a high school and you have to kind of like keep up with the kids. What's the reaction for the kids? I mean, are they kind of coming in and saying, "Hey, this is a brand new song. I've just heard it." What's your process on that?
Yeah. Sometimes I like to just sort of talk to them and see like, what are you into? It's really funny. I've had students like I had one student a couple of years ago who's like, I have a really great song. I think you'll like it. Like, it's so cool. I just found it. And it was like a Calvin Harris song from like, like 2012 or something. I'm like, this is so cute. But I also know, like, I learned about like shoegaze and like hyper pop from one of my students who's really plugged in. But that's the thing too, is like some of them like don't have any idea, right? They're just like, they love classic rock. And I had one student who every time he'd be working in the studio, he'd be listening to like I don't know, AC/DC and like Nirvana, which I love, but I'm like, oh, this guy doesn't really, listen to dance music. But slowly over time, I think he got more and more into it, and he would bring me like, hey, I found this song. What do you think? I had a student who loved the country artist Kane Brown, and so he got super excited when he worked with Marshmello last year or the year before. So also I had a really fantastic TA last summer who put me on to Lola Young, who now is, a huge artist with her track Messy, which we're playing a remix of. So yeah, they definitely do it. They don't do it quite as much as you might think. And it's a little bit more like, oh, I'm going to see Lola Young. I'm like, oh, who's Lola Young? And then 6 months later, I'm like, that's Lola. Oh, okay. Which I think gave me a little bit of a leg up, right? I could be like, oh, I know her already. Like, I want to play this. This is great. So yeah, I just like to talk with them and get to know them. And through that, get to understand kind of what they're into. But I do think there was a bit of a lull where kids weren't as into dance music, weirdly. but I think they're coming back around. I think it's hitting critical mass again, kind of like it did in 2012, 2013, 2014. And the students are starting to know DJs and hear music elsewhere. It's getting on their For You feed or whatever. So yeah, I think it's coming back around for the kids. At least my kids.
So
maybe they're not the coolest.
When it comes to like understanding a little bit of that, I'm sure. I mean, again, it's not even just mildly annoying. It's just a bit of like, oh, that's cute. You know, it's like, oh, Nirvana and again, like you're saying, AC/DC. Like, I'm glad that you're learning about those because those are key components and stuff like that. But even more so too, like, you know, I would assume that is there an equal balance between the amount of students that want to be a part of your program to either be on the air to be famous, or are they just is there really a calling for EDM within the school? In the program process?
I think once kids, like, they don't always know what we do right away, but I will say that I did a night where new students were coming in. A lot of them were like 8th graders, going to be 9th graders in the fall. And I think they were the most knowledgeable kids I've ever seen. And I've been teaching since 2017, who came in and were like, C895, this is C895? Wait, this is the dance station? That's here? Oh my God, oh my God. So that was cool. So I also think it has a lot to do with the parents or their guardians or the adults they're around. If they have a cool older sibling. I mean, I found out about C89 because my mom listened to it. And a lot of students, that's where they come in on it too. And that's also why they like Nirvana, or why they like, you know, Led Zeppelin or whatever, right? Because their parents are into it.
I'm not saying that they're finding their parents' CDs or records in the attic.
Oh yeah. They love to tell about their tapes. I'm like,
oh, their tapes. No, I don't want to hear that.
They love tapes. I'm like, you guys, tapes are horrendous. But they are more into CDs now, which I'm excited about. So yeah, I feel like it really depends on the kid and what they're exposed to, and if they're already exposed to dance music, if they grew up listening to C89 or they know dance, you know, the scene a little bit, then they're super excited. But a lot of them just come in because they're like, radio, that sounds cool, or I love podcasting, or some of them are interested in being maybe influencers or something, but not as much as you would think. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, a lot of them are just like, I'm curious, I want to know more about audio editing, or I like music, I want to learn more about, you know, the music side, just in general, not necessarily dance music.
Yeah, and I'm sure the social media, you know, that really kind of digs into the being an influencer, or I'm sure at some point in time they learned that as being a content creator, even either on Twitch or Kick or YouTube or anything like that, that you can find monetary value from it. You can get money for doing the things that you're doing, but also being able to represent yourself as yourself. I know for me, I started my radio career in 2012. But even more so, all the program directors that I've talked to, like, they were just like, well, obviously here's our demographic, here's the sheet with all the different things that you have to talk about, you know, and one of them ended up just saying, they're like, you know, our demographic doesn't necessarily care for anime and robots. Or robots in video games. And I'm like, well, I mean, that's fine. But I mean, at the same time, too, when the Switch 2 comes out, you know, everybody's going to want to know more information about the Switch 2. You got to ask a nerd to try to figure out where that's kind of coming from. But being able to have that freedom of expression, to be able to be like, okay, well, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I'm talking about. Also translating into the fact that you can make a career and you're learning the skills even at the high school level, which makes me really excited. It just makes me excited that this radio station is in a high school, and then it's part of a program that you can earn credit while also kind of putting together your own show. So, but you're saying that there really is not much of a calling within your students, as far as like they're just kind of interested in becoming an influencer, or
less of that than I think people would think. You know, I don't think they would turn it down should the influencing life find them, but I don't necessarily always find that they're coming in and that's their goal. I think they're more interested in some of the technical components a lot of times. They're interested in the technology on how radio works, or they've done a little audio editing in the past and they really love that. You know, they like podcasts, which podcasts is basically radio. And then from there, they gain skills and build up the personality and understand how it integrates into social media, and how, oh, maybe you could do podcasting, or you could go into journalism, or you could be an influencer. But a lot of kids end up doing all kinds of different stuff. You know, they'll go on to be like an electrical engineer because they learned how to put in the boards that we use. I had a student a couple of years ago who helped us put in all our new studio equipment. And now he's at the University of Washington doing electrical engineering. Like, he did the whole thing. So that was super cool. And, you know, we've had students who go on to work in the music industry, you know, whether that's like for a record label or become a promoter or work here in the scene themselves. And a lot of times once they're out of high school is when they get into like DJing and the dance music culture, because then their friends start, you know, going to festivals or they go to clubs and they're more exposed. And then they'll come back and be like, oh my gosh, I went to Beyond Wonderland this year, or I went to Q this weekend, which is a club here in Seattle. And it's like, they already knew about all this stuff. They just didn't connect the dots yet because they were so young, I think. So I think they appreciate it more sometimes after they've graduated and either they're volunteering with us or they come back, or I just check in with them and they're like, I know now, I get it. And it's like, yeah, I was trying to tell you the whole time. But kids do get it too at the time. But I think it kind of means more the older they get. They're like, oh, that's what I was a part of. That's cool.
That's a really neat process too of being able to develop that, is the fact that they can come in and get to explore a little bit, dip their toes in the water, get a better understanding of how a lot of these things work. Again, I think a lot of the time that if you just work a regular 9 to 5 and you're stuck in your car in traffic or something, you'll turn the radio on and you're not thinking about all the background stuff that goes on, the on-air personalities or the producers or even the music selection. You just think, oh, the radio exists and that's it. But even more so is getting a better understanding of all these other things that we have currently at our exposure as the fact that like social media still exists and you have YouTube, you could be watching different things with the podcasting as well, and understanding the format of putting together a show or the format of understanding a specific topic. You know, you can't just sit on a couch and just expect to be like, well, I'm sitting on a couch, what do we talk about? But even more so too, like all of that is super helpful when it comes to instructing, you know, doing talk breaks and understanding the programming alone when you do have a shift, even comparable to kind of like removing the fat and kind of getting into like a specific topic when you do have only 30 seconds to talk. Where did you find kind of a nice balance with that as well too? The fact that, again, podcasting is a kind of a hot topic here. It's a popular thing, especially in virtual reality too. But getting the skills and understanding to become an on-air personality, there's a whole skill set for that as well.
Yeah, totally. I think some of the things that the students gain the most from being a part of the radio program is like confidence, you know, learning how to plan a show, which then can translate into like planning out a presentation or planning out how you're going to attack a topic or a project. And just learning how to kind of compose themselves and be able to present a certain version, you know, professionally. We have a lot of students who come in and do our morning show, and they learn how to like prep for the morning show. They learn how to respond to listeners on the text lines or on the phone. They learn how to answer a phone. That's a big thing. So a lot of times I think it is just like the soft skills that they learn. You know, they're responsible to come in at 7 a.m. if they tell our morning show host they're going to be there. Like, they need to be there because he's counting on them. Or, you know, part of what they're graded on is doing a podcast episode. And like, it needs to be a certain length and it has to include these certain things and it needs to be coherent. And so it's like follow through, right? And planning, and also the technical skills, and also the fun, like, make a series of social media posts to advertise your podcast. And that's part of the project. But there is a lot more that they almost take away. That's like, the softer skills more than even just like full on the hard radio skills that they also have. But being able to like be treated like it's a job. I always jokingly tell them, like, we're paying you in grades.
Right.
You know, and run a board and be on air, and you're responsible for this, you know, an hour of on air programming. And if you don't show up to class, nobody's going to be on the air. So that impacts us. So that's cool. I think that they get to, you know, get those lessons in a learning environment more than just like turning in homework, sitting at a desk, reading a book. You know, it's so hands-on too.
What's it? It's going to sound like a really stupid question, but like, how do you curb meme culture? I feel like in high school, chicken jockey's still a thing. You know, like being able to scream that and be like, I'm on radio, I'm going to say chicken jockey. Or do you think that a lot of the kids have that type of maturity to be able to go on there and be focused on the type of content that they're going to try to provide?
That's a really good question. And I got to tell you, like all of my kids, like maybe we just get like the more, well, I know they joke around though, because they definitely, you know, there are memes that happen for sure. But yeah, it's not really a problem. I think like the space feels really professional. I know we're not like obviously in our station and you can't really see it, but if you look online, you can see it. And if you're ever in Seattle, I, you know, welcome you up to come on by. But you know, you come in from the hallway and it's like a radio station. You know, you're like, there's adults. We have a small adult staff and they're there working, and I treat them with respect. But there are some rules, and they respond to it. You know, so it's really not. I really trust all of our students to represent us well. You know, when they go to events and sit at booths, they're kind and respectful, and they interact with the people. And it's not too much of a problem. Sometimes on the morning show, they'll interact with our hosts. They just don't know stuff, you know, like they won't know who Nirvana is, or they won't know what a certain thing is because they're babies, you know, they're teenagers and they don't know yet.
Well, even with the morning show too, are they kind of I would assume that they're doing a little bit better than an Electric Zoo kind of style morning show, or do you encourage that?
Yeah, they have a plan, and they're not necessarily always scripted out. There's a little on that end, but they plan it out. They, you know, Drew does a really good job kind of having expectations of what he wants from them. They shadow for a little while to kind of get the vibe. And that's the thing too, is they learn from each other. So if you see, you know, a senior who's on the air with Drew, who's been doing it for 3.5 years, and they've got a certain composure and stuff, a younger student will kind of understand, like, oh, that's what they want from me. And, you know, I always love to have students teach each other stuff as well. Like, hey, show them how to run the board, or show them how to do an on-air talk set. And I think that helps as well. Like, oh, well, this, you know, upperclassmen's taking it seriously. Like, I'm going to take it seriously too. So yeah, generally kids they're into it. They love it. Once they get into it, they're super into it. I definitely was. And you feel like you're part of something that's really special, and you want to take it seriously, but you're still having fun, obviously. Like Drew would probably encourage them to yell about the chicken that I don't even, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, that's okay, because our listeners do know that they're students, and there's a space for them to be themselves within the professional, like, scaffolding we give them, I guess.
Would it surprise you that you can actually become the chicken jockey here in VRChat?
No,
No,
0%.
I was surprised that you didn't roll up here as the chicken jockey.
You know, you never know. You just have to have me back. Have me back. Yeah.
Talking with Harmony Soleil of C895 on VRCDJLIVE, and of course it's a live program. And anybody that is lurking in chat, I know it's kind of a hard time because all we've ever known is our community in here, and the fact that the things that we are constantly learning in here. Actually, honestly, every time that I come back into VRChat, even in the past 2 years, I talk with the people from the community. I get to talk to them about all sorts of different topics and ideas, and we kind of just we raise awareness of a lot of different things within our community that is going to affect our community. For example, through Twitch, last year, it's going to be coming up in August, the completion of it, is Twitch ended up creating the Twitch DJ program, which allows Twitch to gain licensing, DMCA free licensing through Merlin, to be able to play music on Twitch without DMCA strikes. Which is just fantastic. Speaking of the fact that no one's really touched the law since 1997, so being able to kind of get a better basis of it. However, within our community, again, a good portion of us are from the States. The rest of them are from Europe. So for the Europeans, they still have to follow the terms of service that Twitch provides, with also the terms of service that is provided within their country as well. So as a community, we talk a lot about these types of things, and try to troubleshoot it within our community. But the same thing kind of goes with being able to have the professionalism when it comes to being on air and finding time for a meme joke or something funny within VRChat, but also kind of getting a better understanding of how to brand yourself and where you do want to go. So that's one of the many different things that with a part of our community that is something that we have to continue to identify, even especially with your students as well. They get to go on and they get to be on the radio and be a talent and be a personality, while also gaining a little bit of skills and better understanding if they decide to go down the route of content creator as a streamer, or being able to kind of just, again, sit in front of a screen and talk to yourself for several hours. Is kind of a thing too. But understanding, like I was saying before, is that we have a lot of DJs that are hobbyists in here that tend to lean more on the jokey side. Like they'll be like DJ Turtle or DJ Boxhead or DJ, something like that, or DJ Chicken Jockey if we ever
Right,
if you decide to go down that route. Which again is super fascinating because again, all you've ever wanted to do is just support the fact that you can come in here and perform and be able to do your best. But also too, as we were kind of alluding to a little bit beforehand, was the fact that if you do decide to brand yourself as, let's just say, DJ Chicken Jockey, seeing that we're talking about it, and you want to produce a sound, you want to produce some music, I feel like it is very difficult to continue to push that idea through social media, through SoundCloud, to get any sort of traction, not even just through a radio station or a record label or even a promoter for that matter, but just being able to be serious about the work that you do, even comparable to all of that, and that type of a concept. Is that something that I mean, again, like you've said, that's something that you've kind of briskly talked about with your students, the seniors, a part of the program compared to even to the freshmen, they kind of keep themselves in check when it comes to that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been happening as often as you said it was.
No, they're pretty great. And sometimes students will come up with their on-air names, right? And they could be like, "Well, I want to be DJ Chicken Jockey," and it's like, "Well, do you want to do that? Like, do you want people to refer to you as that? I mean, like, live your dreams, right? But like, I don't know." And like I picked my real name is Harmony, but I picked a different last name to because I was underage, and we just generally do that. And now I use it for everything. That's just me professionally. That's me on social media. That's just like, that's me. So I'm glad I didn't pick DJ Chicken Jockey in 2004. Not that it exists, but still, like you kind of want to think about, I didn't necessarily think about the long game, but I did think like, okay, I want to sound like a professional person on the air. So I'm going to be Harmony Soleil versus, something crazy. I have had a student, who's like, well, I'm going to be Brad Pitt. I'm like, no, you're not. You're not going to do that. But I don't ever want to like, stifle their creativity or anything. We have a new student who's on air with our morning show who's her name is DJ Princess Awesome or something like that. Princess Awesome something. It's like, that's fun. Like, that's a brand. That could be a whole thing. Go for it. So I think it's like being open and being like, yeah, what is fun? What does represent you? But a little bit, I do like to encourage them to be like, you can't be Brad Pitt out in like the world, right? And then you're going to have to start over. You're going to have to pick something else. And like, you can't use, maybe that's good. Sometimes people want to do that. But I always like to kind of like, this is your launch point. Let's do something that maybe you can be proud of in the future. And not like you wouldn't be proud of being Brad Pitt or DJ Chicken Jockey, but it's nice to be able to use stuff for a resume or, once you graduate or once you're 18 and you want to go work at a real radio station or a different radio station, we're a real radio station. You want to be able to use the stuff. You want to be able to show them, have a portfolio. And, as fun as like memes are, and there's a place for jokes and having a personality, you want to kind of consider like your brand and how you can go into the future with that, especially when it's something you're working really hard on. So I can't remember what that person who wanted to be Brad Pitt ended up doing as their air name, but I was able to talk them off the ledge a little bit and be like, let's do something else.
I mean, I could only imagine if you were to go ahead and try to Google Brad Pitt that you'll find an actual Brad Pitt outside of the one that you're supposed to be. Yeah,
absolutely. But it's like, that's going to be an uphill battle for you to try to be that name or whatever to establish yourself. And that's what we want to do.
And even with social media too, like an understanding is one of the things that we're constantly feeding into as well is like, again, in virtual reality, we do have people that want to continue to carry on with their hobbies it's not even just a matter of there's a little bit of, the rule of thumb is like, if you're gonna, my friend DJs and they encouraged me to DJ, so I'm gonna be DJ so and so, and then we're like, yeah, sure, okay. But it's not even just a matter of a gatekeeping thing. We want everybody to learn how to DJ. We want you to try it. We want you to get in there and perform in front of a crowd, perform in front of no crowd, get an idea of reading the crowd and how to transition and all that sort of stuff. So we give those opportunities too, but obviously, like we've said before, peer pressure is definitely a thing where, like, my friend DJs and they want me to try to do it, and we have a couple of people that do that in here, but we have the mix between the hobbyists and the people that want to take it a next step further, where they want to challenge themselves. They want to push their own records. They want to be able to produce, not even just remix, but actually make records. At Fun Enough, we have a couple of communities in here that have just started making their own record label.
Cool.
So that's always a very fun thing. And actually, 10XX we had on the show recently. He's starting to get into the drum and bass scene. He is from Vienna. I believe he moved to Amsterdam. Got his manager at ADE, wouldn't you believe?
Wow.
So that's kind of cool. But he DJs in here as well. And he just released a new record through the record label Baptism, which is in VRChat. So that's mind-blowing, because again, as you get to experience and how you've been experiencing, that we have it's a free program. You can come in here and just kind of have a good time and see free DJs, no tickets or nothing like that. But we're kind of continuously talking about that type of a process. I want to bring it back a little bit from the Winter Music Conference, where we were talking a little bit. One of the other hot topics that I was the ideas that I was able to take away from that week was the fact that SoundCloud is a really big deal. That not only is submitting your music on SoundCloud, they brought up the whole Post Malone story, which is always a very good story of how he got noticed. But even more so, we have people in here that it's either they produce first, then DJ later, or DJ and then produce later. And we constantly feed into the whole SoundCloud idea. So talk to us a little bit about that, especially because, like, we have DJ Chicken Jockey, if we ever have one, that wants to produce a record and want to be able to produce it as a brand. We've had these conversations in here in our community saying, yeah, maybe you should kind of, think a little bit about it and Chicken Jockey somewhere else and whatever. But they do what they got to do. But tell us a little bit more about that importance of SoundCloud. And one of the things, again, another great topic, another takeaway that I took away from that week was everyone's on Instagram. That's the one thing in VRChat, we don't really do the Instagram, and like we do more Blue Sky now. But talk to me about your process of understanding and how you're receiving some new music or finding the new music, or even having these conversations with the labels about the music that you find on SoundCloud.
Yeah, SoundCloud is cool and can be kind of a crazy place, right? You kind of fall down a rabbit hole of like, there's so much stuff, and some of it is more serious than other stuff, which is fine. Like, that's awesome. But I think it's making sure that, if you present yourself in a certain way, I always try to keep an open mind. And if I see, DJ Chicken Jockey, I might not even like 100% get that right away. I'm like just old enough to like, do I get that reference? And I'm like, yes. But I always like to know, if I find a song I like on SoundCloud, or I see it trending on Instagram, and I don't know the artist or anything, and I find it on SoundCloud, for example. But this could translate for other social media too, is I want to see more than just like the Chicken Jockey photo, and then there's like one song, and then there's no links anywhere. I don't know who you are. I don't know, even if you are an awesome DJ in VRChat, if you don't say anything about that, I just think you're like what? You produced a song, and I don't know, is this a real thing? Like, I don't know, is it just a joke? Like, is it worth my time? So it does help to have links to, if not Instagram, Blue Sky, that's cool. A website, if you're on a record label, like I wouldn't necessarily know it's a VRChat record label. I just see like, oh, Baptism, cool, okay, they're like part of a collective, or they're part of a group. I don't even care if it's not in real life. That's fine. It's someone that's putting themselves out there and making connections, and can show what they're doing. That's not to say someone who's brand new can't like make a hit or make a a song that would get my attention or someone else's attention. But I think it's nice to just give me some information about who you are, what are you doing, where can I find more information about you. That's helpful, because otherwise it is kind of hard to know on the internet, like, did you actually make this song? Sometimes I wonder that. I'm like, is this a real song? Like, I've Shazammed stuff before just on my phone to see, like, did they make this, or is this? Yeah, I got to know about that stuff too, right? The legality of it. Like, is this really your music?
Right.
You
Instead of
know,
like an
I
AI
don't know.
generated something.
Yeah, or you're stealing someone else's music. I don't know. Like, I got to be careful about, all that stuff, and do my due diligence too. So I think just making sure, like, hey, if you're DJ Chicken Jockey, I want to see some info about you. Like, give me a bio, give me some information about what kind of music you make, where you DJ in real life or in VR. Just let me know that you look legit, kind of. And it doesn't even have to be like, I have 1 million followers. Like, I don't. You don't have to have that. But if I get to a SoundCloud page and it's like dead looking, I'm gonna be like, oh, this looks sus. Like, what's up here?
And this is
You know
all
what I
this
mean?
is all good, helpful information too. I know one of the things that we have been talking about in the community that somebody actually brought up a very good point. I forgot who it was or who I was talking to, but one of the things was like, if you were going to consistently post on social media saying, "Hire me, I'm open for bookings,"
Yeah.
and that sort of stuff, but you're not showing any examples, any video examples of you performing in front of a group of people, or I mean, posters are great. But you can't really see what was going on during the event via a poster. Like, you could put your name
No.
on a piece of paper and say that it's your name and it's on a piece of paper. But
Exactly.
being able to showcase on social media that you've done some video work, and especially again in VRChat like we're doing right here, you can capture video and you can capture photos and be able to showcase what you have done within the community. But I feel like our community members, they're not as quick to the punch when it comes to understanding to be able to do something like that. And I think it's a good reassurance to be able to state that it's just on even on social media too, that as long as you have consistency and being able to showcase what you do, even just with the numbers too, that the numbers can be a little faulty. It's kind of like a seesaw where it's just like, if you've got 1 million followers on X but you only have a few on SoundCloud, then maybe you should boost the numbers on SoundCloud. But also, too, what do the numbers kind of lie as well? Because there's a lot of people out there that genuinely may have just like 1,000 followers on all platforms, and they think that that's still not enough.
Yeah, I don't even think like that. That's pretty good. Like, I mean, that would be solid. Even a couple hundred. I think if I get in there and I see like you upload mixes, that maybe you record your mix in VRChat every week or every time you perform, and I see on SoundCloud like, here's from May, here's from June, here's from July. I'm like, oh, okay, like they're doing mixes somewhere, and that's cool. Again, the consistency thing. It doesn't even necessarily have to be like, here's a video of me DJing, because I don't do that. Like, I'll go out and play, not as much recently because I've been too busy, but it's cool to be like, yeah, but I did do this thing, and here's the mix from it. Is good for me to know, especially because I do work a lot with DJs, booking them either for C895. I also work with the W Seattle. I'm their music curator, and I might be looking for someone to book at W Seattle. And if I see like, oh, they post mixes all the time, and then I listen to it, and I'm like, oh, this is super housey and vibey and matches what we look for at W Seattle. That wouldn't necessarily stop me from booking them. Like, I'd be like, oh, it's in VRChat, but they have the skills. Like, you want to come out and do a real set in the hotel. So yeah, that consistency goes that way too. Like, just show me that you doing stuff. It doesn't even have to be your face or actual fancy footage from a show in VR or in real life. I think the music kind of will stand on its own.
So we genuinely do have people that live on the West Coast that are in VRChat as well. And funny enough, the very funny story about this is the East Coast kids usually on Fridays and Saturdays will start partying at around 10 p.m. And then we'll DJ for like 3 hours. And then the East Coast kids get tired, and then the West Coast kids come in around 1 a.m. because it's 10 o'clock their time, and they're like, we're ready to go. And we're just like, oh, we just did 3 hours. I'm sorry you guys are just starting and we're tired, we're kind of so that's always a very funny thing here, because even during the day, like on the East Coast around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it's nighttime for the Europeans, so they start partying around 3 p.m. My time. But then by the time they're done at 6 p.m., then all of us kind of show up, and then it just kind of comes in droves every so often. And it's so funny how all of that kind of works out. But even the kids that are in VRChat that are on the West Coast too, this is good information for them as well. How would you what would you recommend for them to be able to reach out to you as far as this? Because this is still new. This is kind of still news, especially for those people on the West Coast that are looking to branch out.
Yeah, I mean, I am on Instagram, so that's actually been really useful for me to find DJs. I love, I'm really building up connections and a base in Seattle because I love the dance scene in Seattle. I think it's fantastic. Myself and my former program director used to say Seattle is the next Amsterdam. I think we just have a really great scene. I did say that when I was on a panel during ADE. No one faulted me, so I assume they're fine with me saying this. In Amsterdam, they didn't chase me out or anything. So I love being able to connect with people on Instagram. I'm a chronically online person in that way, and I go through and check people out, get a sense of their vibe, and you can message me at Harmony Soleil. I'll get to you eventually. Sometimes I'm like, but that's fine. Also, my email is just harmony@c895.org. That's a good place to go. But Instagram is really great for me because I can get a sense of a person, and I can message them directly. The links are there. I used to be a big Twitter person, RIP, but that whole thing has happened. I do have a Blue Sky. I'm trying to be on there more. But yeah, I love when people slide into the DMs and ask questions or send mixes or, anything. I'm always open. It might take me a minute to respond, but I will get back to you eventually because I think it's a great way to connect and get a sense of people.
I do feel like you are a very open and receptive program director. I'm not saying that most program directors aren't, but at the same time that they're busy running stations, and you seem very involved. You seem like you're very interested in a lot of different aspects when it comes to the music scene. But when it comes to a lot of the people that are either first starting or even worried about rejection and they're feeling a little hesitant to be able to do that, is it just a matter of just sending stuff to send stuff that it could potentially show up in any sort of an email? Not just for you. I mean, you say that you're open to seeing a lot of different things, but a lot of the program directors, or even in the case of and I would love your opinion on this too, because I think a lot of the producers in here, the people that make music, they're looking to try to get their foot in the door with record labels, and they're looking for ways to not mass spend emails, just send stuff and hopefully they'll be able to see a name or one day someone's sitting on the beach and they're looking at their phone and be like, oh, I gotta take a look at this. But when it comes to being hesitant about that, what is your recommendations for anybody that's looking to try to get that foot in the door?
I think, it's always great to do your research first. Sometimes I get these mass kind of promotions emails I think people will send out, and the thing that just drives me insane is it'll first of all, sometimes it'll say Mr. Program Director, Mr. Music Director, and I'm like, whoa, this is not starting out well at all. And that's something I'm super passionate about, is elevating women and non-binary and people who don't get their opportunities. So to start out like that, not great. So find out who the person is. Even if you don't know my pronouns or anything, you can just use my name. I think those mass emails are probably useful for people to do, but if you can be a little more personalized, and I don't need you to know my life story or anything, but if you're hey, Harmony, hope you're doing well in Seattle. I always do that when I write emails to people I've never met before. I try to make, hope your week's going well, or happy Pride. I'm reaching out because I'm a person, and I do open my emails and my DMs, and if I sense a connection with the person or that they're really introducing themselves, that's nice, right? It's oh, hey, you're in Atlanta? Oh, cool. I'm in Seattle. That's super different. Or you're in Amsterdam. I love Amsterdam. So that's nice. Do your research. Don't call it, just please don't say Mr. or Mrs. and not know. but also just please just send me one thing. I really don't like when people send me a whole EP because one, unfortunately, I don't have the time to listen to the whole thing. Also, it is traditional in the industry to have a focus single, right? Like Lady Gaga doesn't just like release her whole album and be like, pick which one you want to play. You know, it's like, here's Disease, here's Abracadabra, here's, you know, like they have a schedule. And you don't need to have a whole schedule, but be like, I think this is my strongest track. Also, it'll fit your radio station. So I had someone last week or earlier this week send me a track and she did all the things I'm saying, but it was like something that like a CHR or it had too many instruments. It wasn't electronic at all, but she had a great voice. And I felt bad because I'm like, she put in some work here, but like, this is not right for my station at all. And I always try to respond to people. And I said, I'm like, hey, you have a great voice, but unfortunately, this really doesn't fit the format of my radio station. If you ever do anything a little more electronic, please get it to me. And I think then they respond and were like, oh, I have a houseier sounding track coming out soon. Great. I don't think I responded to that email because I'm just like, okay, great. I might, right? Be like, hey, send it to me then. So yeah, I think doing your research is the most important thing and making sure you're not just like, here's 100 songs. Like, nope, can't do it. Don't want to hear 100. Send me your favorite. Or if you send me a couple, tell me what your focus single is or what you think is your strongest. And please don't send me your folk song because that's not gonna work.
Your Guitar Avicii on the Beach song.
No, it's just like I don't want a levels cover with a banjo. Or something.
Oh, okay. So your Mumford and
like,
Sons cover.
Please don't. That's a different station. You can send that to somebody else, but just know who you're talking to and the station. Because otherwise you're just kind of wasting your time. If you make hip hop, that's great, but I don't need to hear it. You know what I mean? If it's like a little bit more electronic leaning hip hop, I'm interested. And I know sometimes people maybe don't know, and that's okay. Like you can send it, but it might not be what I'm looking for. And I try to tell people that in a nice way, a constructive way.
Yeah.
So
yeah, a lot of this is super interesting too, because and I feel like I've talked a little bit about this with my staff as we're continuously trying to present VRCDJ Live as a much broader brand and getting an understanding of like some of the analytics or statistics that we're receiving from viewership based on clips and rewatchability as far as the programming is concerned. And when it comes to radio, the rule of thumb is that the average listener listens about 22 minutes at a time, sitting in the car, stuff like that. But even more so, a lot of people, when it comes to understanding air checks and listening to those types of air checks, or even just a demo, even me, when I get new music in through the DJ pools, I don't spend my whole 3 minutes listening to the entire track unless I'm really vibing. But I have enough time for a verse and a chorus and maybe the beginning of the end. But But that's the thing too, is just like there's so many people, and I'm not saying that everyone in VRChat can novice, but they get to a point where they're just like they're really passionate about a brand, and because VRChat it encompasses everybody. we do have professionals in here. Actually, not to ruin the surprise a little bit, but we do have one of our guests for next month runs the rave at MomoCon in Georgia that features about 32,000 people. It's a massive event and that goes on as far as pop culture is concerned. But and even him, for when he gets submissions too, is that he has to sit down and say, okay, how much time do I need to dedicate to looking at social media or listening to an EP or an example, and being able to understand that you only have a few seconds to woo somebody, or show off your best stuff. Or in this particular case, if let's just say you have Abracadabra, you want to be able to get something maybe less than 90 seconds. 90 seconds is a little much, but 90 seconds is a good way of doing it. But in virtual reality, when it comes to creating your own brand, it's just like streaming. It's just like you kind of have to learn a little bit, but at the same time, I think the other cheeky part of all of this too is that when you are making content, there is a way for you to. I'm gonna throw something at you that's really funny and you're gonna laugh. But there's a lot of people that will come up to me and just be like, "I want to start voicing commercials, but I don't have a script. How do I do it?"
Yeah.
The answer is listen to the commercial. That's the script.
Yeah.
Jot that down. Write it down.
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
and try to record it in that style, and then record it in your own style, and then you'll be able to do that. However, when it does come down to submitting materials to, again, a program director or a record label, stuff like that, it's kind of lost in translation as far as what the template is supposed to be. And obviously you want to show off everything that you want to, but there's also, there's websites that will offer that sort of template. And in that particular case, that's super helpful information of just saying, and to be honest and real about it, if that single hits, then that's the station's going to play the single. They're not going to play an EP. Yeah. They're just going to play that one single. No. And so that's the thing here, is just that you have a lot of people that are promoting stuff in here. But I feel like once they promote a single or they promote, a new record, they're kind of under the thumb to go back into the lab to make another one. And you got to kind of space it out a little bit as far as your time frame's concerned. But that's really helpful advice when it comes to the people that are producing in here, that want to make their own music and be able to showcase it. Start with one tune. Speaking of which, we're gonna talk about it. You already said the name, and I didn't want to tease it too much. So, but C895 is kind of famous because of one rising star that ended up sending in a demo. Let's talk about that rising star and what kind of impact that they had.
Yeah, that one didn't end up in the garbage like poor Katy Perry did.
Katy Perry.
That was good. Yeah. So yeah, back it was actually my senior year of high school, right at the end of 2008, or the school year of 2008, right? So summer. We got this demo from this little like artist from New York City called Lady Gaga, and we heard it. And our program director at the time was like, yeah, this is great. I'm not sure if he got I can't remember if we got a CD or if it was a digital file. It might have been a digital file. Anyways, we loved it. Just Dance was the record, and we played it. And if you go on Mediabase, you can look it up. But we are the first radio station to have ever played Lady Gaga in the United States. I think it must have been April or May of 2008, because I remember going to my prom that year, and I made my friends put on C895 when we were in our like limo going to prom, and that song came on. And this is a proud moment, Stan from day one, but Just Dance came on. I'm like, you guys, this is so good. And they're like, who is this? I'm like, I don't know. It's this artist called Lady Gaga. I don't know. So that was super incredible. And then she did that August. It was actually 3 days before I turned 18. She came and performed in our brand new performing arts center, where we do the musicals to this day and the plays and all the stuff at the high school. Lady Gaga came and performed, and there's really terrible videos on YouTube of it, circa 2008. They're like the wrong aspect ratio because like the phone was flipped a certain way.
Right.
But yeah, she came with Space Cowboy, who she worked with at the time, and performed at our performing arts center that, I went and saw kids do a musical a few weeks ago on that same stage. So that was super cool. A couple of funny kind of inside things that happened was her dressing room was the band room, and on her rider, she wanted fresh guacamole. So we were like panicking because someone had to make her guacamole. We couldn't buy it. Like somebody had to go home and like mash up avocados and like make
that could be make or break too. Like, let's just say the guacamole is not that great to begin with.
Yeah, I don't know. It must have been okay because she performed.
Perfect.
And then the funny thing was we played a version of Just Dance that I don't even think exists at all anywhere, but it had Akon on it. And the version that's out now, that's on streaming, that everybody knows, has a different artist on it, Kobe Odonis. And so I remember literally she was like on her way, and we were freaking out because we had to take out the Akon version because that like was not the version we were supposed to be playing, and we didn't want like the label or the people she was with to like hear that wrong.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because I know the video that's on the About page was saying that the demo was coming from Interscope Records and not Convict. So I don't know if there was any sort of
why. I don't know. That's a great question. That could have been maybe why. That was the version that they had with Akon, who might have been on Interscope. It's great. That would be a good like research topic to dive into that lore. But I just remember like a panic between the guacamole and we're playing the wrong version of the song. So that was funny. And then I got to interview her. I always like to say I interviewed her before Barbara Walters. And very sadly, I do not have the audio from that. I'm very sad about that. It got lost in a move that we did. So I do not have the audio of Baby Harmony and Baby Lady Gaga. But I do have a really great photo of us together. So I have proof. But that was super awesome. I'm a big fan. I just saw her at Coachella and I cried the whole time. I'm like, look at us now. So yeah, that was incredible. And that was like the power of, trusting a brand new artist, right? Like, wow, she turns out to be the artist with the biggest concert of all time, in Rio. It's you never know. And sometimes they don't. And that's okay too. You just got to be able to take the rest.
So what kind of connection do you have with Gaga right now? Does she continuously stop in? Does she check in? Does she send you like the latest stuff?
No, I wish. I don't know. I was too much of a baby to really be able to foster that relationship, which is too bad. So no, we still play her music. We still talk about her, but I don't know. I don't know. I would love to get to ask her someday. I'd probably cry. Like, it'd be a lot for me. Like, I'm cool with people. Like, I meet and interview people all the time, but there's certain people I would like freak out. And I could probably pull it together. But I'd love to know, like, does she remember that? Like, what's her memory? Was the guacamole good? I don't know. But yeah, no, it's not I wish we could restart that connection because that would be really cool. That would be really special. So maybe someday. We'll see.
I've got to make sure we ask about the guacamole, no doubt.
But yeah, that's top number one question. Did we give you food poisoning? I hope not. So, fingers crossed.
It's VRCDJLIVE we're here with Harmony Soleil of C895, and very fun to have you here in VRChat. We have a couple more minutes left of the program too, but we're going to dive into a little bit more of the juicier aspects of the I wonder where a lot of this is kind of heading in the future. And for the life of me, I was just kind of sitting here, kind of taking a look at my notes of the things that we could be talking about and the things that we should be talking about. And I think one of the things that I wanted to bring up, and it's a little bit of a rocky road topic to begin with, is just the fact that we have been kind of talking a little bit about streaming and content creation, as well as social media stuff like TikTok and YouTube and stuff. Even more so that we're seeing a lot more DJs either finding ways to like be virtual or stream more. I know a lot of the more popular DJs that I know of, they're constantly on stream. And funny enough, even at TwitchCon this past year, I got to hang out with Bobby Promo, who I guess he worked on RCA Records a little while ago, but he knows Gabriel and Dresden and introduced me to Gabriel and Dresden, and I was like, oh my gosh, dude, take me back. But those guys were really, really cool. But even more so too is that outside of whatever they're regularly doing, they're just on stream. They're doing stuff on Twitch and they're DJing and producing and talking with the community. So kind of a rockier topic. I know you were saying that even in 2025 that your radio program has been doing having great success so far this year. Tell us a little bit about kind of the direction that you see radio heading, either in the future, the remainder of the year, or how it's been going in the past 5 years or so.
Yeah, I have a couple of answers, but I want to say first off that I have become more and more aware of Twitch DJing. I have a good friend who's actually joining the team on C895, and she is on air with us. Her name's Mia Maya. She's a Twitch streamer. So I've learned a lot from her. Last night I was at an event for Support Women DJs. We have a new Seattle chapter, and there are a bunch of Twitch DJs there. So I'm getting into that too. I've known about that for maybe 2 years, thanks to Mia and kind of pandemic. And so it's kind of interesting to see Twitch and this kind of the two different things that I'm learning about. So I love this kind of helps my education. But I was talking last night with a couple people, and I've talked about it with my friend Mia, is, how can we bring C895 into Twitch? What can we do? We did talk about this during the pandemic. We had a meeting with someone that actually worked at Twitch that was a fan of the station, and he was super nice, and we were really excited, and then we went nowhere with it, which I think is bad. But we're such a small staff, and that was such a crazy time that I think it kind of made sense that we're just like, oh, okay, great, I don't know. And we might have even made a channel. But part of our concern was the streaming rights, which, as you mentioned, that's kind of less of a problem now, which is great. So I really, with my friend kind of joining our team officially, I want to explore, can we do kind of like boiler room type sets on Twitch? And, you know, we are a brand that exists that people recognize in the dance world and maybe a little beyond being on radio. So I would love to bring that in to, you know, we have the technology, right? We have the CDJs, we have the DJs, we have the talent. We have great internet at the station. It's just the fact of getting cameras and getting set up and figuring out how to do all the stuff with like the mods and the chat and learning about that. I was talking with some people about that last night, like, hey, you know, what do you think about how can we do this? So I would personally love to do that. If I do officially become program director, fingers crossed, that's kind of one of my things I want to look into. And how does that work? Can we fundraise? Can we, you know, what's that avenue? So that's first. But second, I do think that a big part of our success, and I think Seattle's a great example of this, is public radio and smaller radio stations. You know, the 3 of the top 10 stations here in Seattle, which is market number 11. So you mentioned, you know, another market number, but, you know, we're up there, are all public stations. So our NPR affiliate, KUOW, is the #1 morning show in the market. A station people know a lot about, maybe outside of Seattle, is KEXP, a really legendary non-commercial kind of indie station. And then there's us in the kind of just out of the top 20. So we're a great market for public radio. And actually, I've talked with Brian Fink, and I told him this, and he was like, the #1 station in the market's a public station? No way. I'm like, you don't know Seattle. Like, it is. Like, he literally did not believe me, coming from someone so out of market and everything. So I think going sort of dissolving, which some big corporations have, you know, gotten rid of, divested some of their stations and markets. And if people can have the ability to buy them up and make them not necessarily like non-commercial stations, but I think coming back to the local side of things is great. And hopefully where things are headed, which is an interesting contrast to something like this, or Twitch, you know, the internet, when we can talk, like, you're on the East Coast, I'm on the West Coast, where people could be listening from wherever. There's a global culture, but I think people also really love local stuff and the ability to listen to somebody just down the street, or, you know, see a booth at Pride and know like they live in your community. I think is as important to kind of balance out this giant global sense that we have. It's kind of overwhelming, you know, so it's kind of nice to have a local station, a KEXP or a C895 or BUR in Boston, right? Is I think it's from Boston. Anyways, I like public radio. I'm a fan, of course, but I think the smaller stations in that sense are kind of where things should be headed. That's where I would like things to go. But there could be internet stations too, smaller, just kind of LPFM stations, and people seem to be responding well to that sort of stuff.
That's good to hear too, especially because most recently I've been kind of dealing with like my old person gripe of like, you know, we've had technology proper for the past 25 years, give or take. Like early 2000s, we had the Frutiger Arrow kind of a thing. When it comes to technology and not understanding very much, but like we've gotten to the point where we're kind of consumed by technology in a good way. I mean, we've gotten to the point where it's just like if we have every piece of information that we've ever needed and have access to, as well as get access to the latest breaking. I don't want to say breaking news now, just because there's breaking news all the time, but at the same time too, like having access to those breaking news stories and understanding of that, everything has kind of changed when it came to that sort of market. And when it came to like doing stuff on radio, because I started my radio career up in Connecticut, and while we were market 52 at the time, it's weird to think that within market 52 and being in the center of a smaller state, a lot of people still rely on that local community sense, more for the sake of like snow reports. or like
Yeah,
emergency stories or something, getting information,
exactly.
which
Yep.
is always
Yep.
super helpful because there's no other place that you can get that. And once you have it, you have an old radio with some like D batteries you could slap in there, and then you're all set.
Yeah.
But at the same time, too, like, we're going through a technological phase where an understanding of being able to talk East Coast, West Coast time, and even in
Mhm.
here in this particular place, that even though the lights are on, there's no energy going through this besides the fact
Yeah.
that it's just existing. Um, and just understanding that, like, we do need the radio, we do it, and the
Yeah.
same thing. I haven't been out to Seattle to understand it, but having that sense of community is super important to continue to uphold. But even with the latest greatest turning of technology, it kind of I'm sitting here trying to think of better words to say. It's just a generational gap when it comes
Mm.
to who wants to use the new technology compared to keeping the old technology current. I guess that's the best way of saying it, is just like, well, you do have a certain age range that likes to listen to the radio. Radio is still fighting up against, I wouldn't even want to say Sirius XM. That's kind of a subscription service, of course.
Yeah.
And like things like Spotify or SoundCloud, which is just absolutely free compared to, if you're going to pay. So it's just a subscription service compared to just listening to
Yeah.
the radio.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
even more so too, like you were saying, being able to mix up the bag a little bit with the social media and Twitch and having a streaming platform where you can not only have access to whatever you're looking for at any given time, but having that interactability with your local community based on the things that you're listening to or want to listen to is super innovative when it comes to this. So understanding the technologies of being able to integrate it with the radio station, honestly, too, working in Tampa at WFLZ and WDAE, they were trying to implement that type of technology too, which they have been.
Yeah.
But I will say that, like, for them trying to keep up with the kids, compared to the type of technology that they're either buying into or
Yeah.
I'm not going to go ahead and say the obvious too, which is, like, I've literally turned my bedroom into a studio
Yeah.
with the lighting and the
Cool.
cameras and stuff. It's kind of weird to go to bed at night when you're literally sleeping in a spaceship. It's almost like it's like sleeping in the radio booth. You got all these lights
Yeah.
going at the
Right.
same time.
Right.
But I think that the radio people are starting to learn what it is like to be a content creator, because on the
Yeah.
radio, you are obviously you are creating the content, but only one type of content, which is just vocal content, comparable to being a lighting guy, a technical assistant guy, knowing how to use
Editing, video
computers,
editing.
and then being
Yeah.
able to uphold a chat and kind of keeping things going at the same time is kind of difficult to be running, especially for someone who has been in radio for such a long time. So, obviously we're just talking about the past 5 years or so, but as you're starting to learn more about Twitch and streaming and stuff like that, obviously, I don't know if you know, TwitchCon is coming back to San Diego, and they're celebrating their 10th anniversary for their convention. So
Wow.
you already know that things are starting to grow. Things are starting to kind of blossom a little bit more. What's your take on that? I mean, I know radio is still going to be around, and I know radio is still an integral part about community. But as we kind of get more of a focus in on there are a lot of silly streamers that get caught up in social media. They're just like, oh, they flash their boobs here, or they said a slur here or something, and then it's just bad reputation when it comes to any stream. You say yourself you're a streamer,
Yeah.
but even more so, I feel like everybody's kind of done that before. There's a couple of people that have there are people that swear on the radio sometimes too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's like, I think everything can relate together. And like, maybe if you are a streamer, it might be cool to see if and you're a DJ or you love a certain type of music, like getting a show on your local station, community station. If you're in college, like pitching a college station, that could be cool, and vice versa. So I think they're like tools that can work together. And I don't think people always think of it that way, but I think it is hopefully good to do that. Like, we can just help each other, right? It's just a tool in a toolbox of, there's social media, there's texting, there's video content, there's radio, there's making merch, there's, whatever. It's all part of the same thing. And I think people are missing out on an opportunity to connect with a wider audience by ignoring one or the other, right? Because if you're doing streaming, you might be connecting to a certain maybe younger audience, whereas if you're on the radio, you're available to everybody and it's super accessible. And as long as they keep putting those radios in cars, fingers crossed, like that's always going to be a part of the culture, getting in the car. And a lot of people say this to me, I don't want to think about what I have to play. Like, I don't want to have to pull up a Spotify playlist. I don't want to have to figure out a podcast. Oh, you guys we're there. And it's like, yeah, we are. You're right. And that's what radio does well. And if you can give people stuff that they want to listen to, then you'll have that audience. And then you can advertise like, hey, check us out on Twitch. We're going to be, in the mix all Pride weekend, which we actually are on my station. And we're going to have DJs on Twitch and on the radio, right? So you can see us and you can hear us and do both as well. So yeah, I think people just need to embrace both. I don't think one has to threaten the other. I've been doing this long enough where I remember when HD radio came out and they're like, that's the next thing, this HD radio.
Yeah, but they were upset
radio.
Because they were saying that they had to replace your car stereo with the HD receivers.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, I don't need to buy any extra anything for radio.
And it's like, I have a car that's from 2019 and I don't have an HD radio. Like, that really didn't happen. I mean, and there are dance stations who are on the HD side, right, that are HD2s or whatever. That's all other thing we talk about. But that is to say that there's been a lot of times when people are like, oh, radio, this is it, or the internet, this is it. And, back in the late 90s, our station, started streaming on the internet. And again, that's just like an augmentation of what we're doing, right? It's just another way for people to listen to us, which is great. We have an app now. People can use the app. And I think at first people think it's going to take away from the radio listenership, right? If they're using the app, or, oh, they're going to only listen online. But that doesn't happen necessarily. And it only makes it easier for people to listen. So why not give them more opportunities to interact with your brand? And that doesn't have to just be radio. That could be, like I said, a streamer or a DJ, but give your audience opportunities to interact with you where they are. Like, give them all the points to meet them where they are. And as long as it doesn't drive you crazy, it'll be worth it, because you're just everywhere and they can easily access your content in multiple different ways. But that's a lot. That's a lot to do.
Yeah,
as well.
And it's super helpful to have those types of apps as well. I know working with iHeartRadio, we had the iHeartRadio app, being able to explain that and how easy that is too. And again, I feel like when you're talking about the radio, you're constantly either thinking two things. You're thinking about the radio in your car. You're thinking about, again, the type of boombox, not really a ghetto blaster, but like a boombox you have to put D batteries in. You bring it to the beach or something like that. But now that we have this modernized technology that be able to enhance a lot of the things that we do in here, it's super inventive. And even more so, again, even for the VR community alone, the fact, like you were saying, putting on a kind of a toaster on your face and then getting the sensory experience a little bit, it's gotten a lot better over time. But but even more so within our community, we're just like, what do you mean you could be in virtual reality on your phone? Like, you could be on you could be on your iPhone, or you can be on an Android and be able to connect with everybody that you want to, is just completely wild. So I kind of want your opinion on it too. And again, whenever you do have some free time, I'd love to try to invite you to come to some more events that we have in here. The events are happening all the time for all the different venues and stuff in here. It is so fascinating to see the type of culture that we currently have in here, and even comparable to, we talk a lot about bridging the gap, which I wish we had a lot more time to talk a little bit more about that, but I want to give you that experience to be able to say, I've seen what goes on in here, and be able to just kind of take it all in. You got to experience it for the first time in here, being able to talk to our staff, and our staff, even though they look like NPCs, they are actual people. Like, I think that's the best part. That they're actually up there doing their jobs and having a good time with it. But when people come in here for the first time, especially on a desktop mode, they're just constantly thinking that they're playing a game and not talking to anybody that's real. But even the largest group that we have in here is about size of 17,000 people, part of their group. And they tend to kind of sell out every night, every Saturday night when they perform. We have a cap of 80 people per instance, with 4 instances available. So you have just tons of people coming to these types of events, and those are mostly out of California. They're out of LA. So, being able to have all of that handy and having an understanding of it is super, super interesting down the board when it is coming down to technology and virtual reality. I kind of want to know your opinion on it. I know you were talking a lot about Twitch. You're talking a lot about the program on there. Do you feel like frightened about virtual reality? What's your opinion on virtual reality and what you've been seeing so far in the mainstream media?
I don't. Like I said, I mean, I'm a pretty open-minded person in terms of technology, and I grew up on the internet and interacting with the different versions of the chat rooms and exploring stuff. So I think it seems really cool. I think people do tend to think they do need like an Oculus or some kind of extra piece of equipment. That's kind of what I thought. I didn't even realize like I could, get on a desktop computer or a laptop or desktop, but laptop and make it happen. So I think making sure people know it like is more accessible than it seems, free to get on. Like you really don't need like all this extra stuff. You can get the extra stuff, obviously, kind of like anything else, right? Like you start DJing with a little controller, then suddenly you want like CDJs. So I think it's just interesting to like demystify it a little bit and know like, oh, you can come in and just hang out and check things according to your interests. Super cool. Like if you want to hear music, you can find a place to go like listen to a DJ. And I just think letting people know like kind of like at the beginning of the internet, right? They're not all like scary people. It's just like you're just hanging out at home and exploring the world in a different way, and just letting know like it isn't this crazy scary thing. It's different, and you got to learn how to walk. Like I had to learn how to walk into this room, but I figured it out, and you guys are very nice. That it's just there's a little bit of a learning curve, but everybody's nice, and you could figure it out. All you have to do is give it a try.
What I find so fascinating about just in VR as well too, recently that we've been kind of investigating and exploring in the past couple of years is while we've been saying that there've been a lot of hobby DJs in here, there's those DJs that want to take it a step further, performing on IRL shows, IRL festivals, stages. To the point last year alone, there was about 13 IRL VRChat experiences where we've had DJs from VRChat performing their own shows in actual venues across the world. And last year I got to go to Amsterdam last year. There was a group of DJs, about 8 of them performing at their own little underground festival at a venue before Liquidity, where they were able to kind of connect with a lot of the larger DJs as well, and they were able to communicate that way. Again, Shelter, who's the largest group in VRChat alone, they put on ShelterCon literally for the past 3 or 4 years out in LA. That has such a massive calling. It's not even a matter of just traveling to a convention and then going to a show. That's the show. That's the reason that you're traveling out there. Even more so that we have a couple members of our community that have legit made their own venues. They would open up their own little side bodega kind of style theater with some really cool setup with like they have the like old school TVs all kind of stacked on top of each other, featuring different things. And they have all the LEDs, and that they fund it. They get the DJs from VRChat to come in to perform, and we're really starting to kind of make a business out of it and start to grow. And a lot of that also kind of stems with the idea of, do the DJs in here have what it takes to play the massive festivals? But we also try to keep an eye on, number one, the changing tide of virtual reality and the technology, but also kind of taking a look at where the festivals are headed to. I know recently, was it Insomniac was having a big deal with like Live Nation as far as the ticketing was concerned, or even was it Bonnaroo that they were having a hard time with refunds, or even at the end of the festivals, that was a really big deal. So this year alone for 2025, festivals really have not been doing very well as far as being re-showcased on the mainstream media. But are we kind of in the right direction in this? Do you think that there's going to be an ever-growing landscape for either virtual reality or modern technology? And where do you see modern day festivals kind of going? I understand that a couple bumps in the road's okay, but is there going to be a point in time where we're going to sit down and, restructure how festivals are kind of put on?
Probably. I mean, I definitely think, there's always going to be something that goes wrong. I mean, something could go wrong in virtual reality too, right? Of course. I definitely think it's so accessible and it's so much more comfortable that, like going out to a festival and being hot and, getting blisters and whatever. Of course, there's something to be said about doing that. I think people will always want to experience music live. But I think, just letting people know that there are other options and it's a lot easier than you even might think to participate in. It could be free. Like, that's a big deal because a lot of people can't afford to go to, Ultra or Coachella or, Beyond Wonderland, which we have here in Seattle and elsewhere with Insomniac. So just showing like, hey, this other stuff exists and it's cheap, it's free. You don't have to do all this stuff like that. I think would be really appealing to a lot of people for sure.
You think that's going to be a problem for those people, those festivals that are constantly looking for the money and they're saying, wait a minute, all these people are going to virtual reality for free. How could we grab them?
Well, that's when, and I think this could be good or bad, right? That's when all of a sudden Live Nation does start opening a venue. And that could be interesting, right? Because they have the money and hypothetically the ability to make big instances. I don't know exactly how it works, but right, like maybe they have the server space or they can buy whatever and make it happen. So it just kind of would just take someone to be like, this is a thing, huh? Okay. Hashtag capitalism, I guess, which would be good or bad. But in a way, it's like then more people would know about this and come in. And then that would funnel people into the smaller venues, right? Because, people want to go to Ultra. People want to go to Coachella. But also those same people might go to their local clubs and their local events. So same thing here, right? Like, you might want to go to virtual Coachella or virtual Ultra. But I could also go and see a DJ with 80 people. I want to do that instead. So in a way, like that could be good. It could be bad, right? I mean, that it's a two-sided thing. But it's someone like Live Nation or an Ultra, which I know people were doing that during the pandemic, right? If someone were to really step up and put the money into it and push it, it could take off, I think, absolutely, just because it would get such a wide audience. Hypothetically, and then people would filter out from there, right? They'd just be curious, like, well, I had a great time in VRChat at virtual Coachella. I want to see what else they have. So
I know one of the benefits that we have here in VRChat currently is the fact that things are free. You can go see a lot of the 99.9% of the events in here are free. Not talking about Ferality. Ferality is only $25. But also too is just like what we're doing is we're putting in a lot of time, putting in a lot of effort to creating our own little kind of festival going on. We recently this past weekend had Gathering, which was a 3-day festival of DJs and dancers and performers in the VR space for maybe about 10 hours each day. And just having a whole lineup of people that were performing in here. Had a really great time with that. And of course, in the summertime, as you may already know, we already have a lot more things going on. Actually, this weekend, and we're going to be announcing a little bit later in the program, is we have a whole festival based on community, just communities. They have their own booths, and it's like your own little convention, but you get to go to see their booths. You get to talk to them. Obviously, VRCDJLIVE is going to be there. We'll tell you about that in a moment. But at the same time, too, they have performers, and then they have dance exhibits, and they have, if you want to learn a different language or you want to meet somebody from across the world, you can do that there, too. With also too, something that you may not know of as well, towards the latter part of July, we have a festival called Virtual Market, which is a connection between Western and Japanese cultures. And we basically hang out with the Japanese kids and they hang out with us. We learn Japanese and the customs that they're used to compared to what's happening here in the States. And they usually have a big music festival as well. But we've had that going on for about 6 years, where so much so that they have created their own real virtual market in Japan that they had a couple weeks ago, featuring VTubers and the likes of virtual reality and stuff like that. So we have the virtual part of it, but also the real version of it as well. So it's all very engaging. It's all very interesting. But on the side of the DJ side, we kind of keep our eyes on the big festivals and the type of integration that we can try to do. Which again, not a way to open up another type of conversation. I know the Winter Music Conference, they were trying to do a virtual reality thing, and I was sitting here going, I wonder what they're doing, because it has nothing to do with our community. It was like something else.
Interesting.
So I'm just like, I've been in virtual reality for this entire time, and I have no idea what's going on. But again, we just have to kind of keep an eyeball on what the future may hold with that.
Yeah, and also, like, I would say for you, like, don't be afraid to, like, poke around and try to figure out what they are doing and offer all your knowledge. And because the connection needs to be made. Like, somebody does need to be like, hey, look at this thing, this is happening. So they do it right, because you don't want to necessarily you want it to be done right, and have someone who knows, because especially the DJ side, like, that's so cool. It makes so much sense, I think, that that's happening and that people would want to do it in the future. So just keep on doing it, and don't be afraid, Rob, to bug people and be nosy
for sure.
And stuff.
That's what I'm good at, and that's a part of the program too. Is we want to talk to everybody, but
yeah, absolutely.
This is VRCDJ Live. We're here with Harmony Soleil, the program director of C895. And just as we're kind of coming up to the last couple of minutes here on the program, we do like to do a quick rapid fire to see if we can kind of get you to not spill the beans, but like get you to like think a little bit on your feet when it comes to some of these topics. They're all very fun. It's stuff that you can handle, I'm very sure. But when it comes to wearing all of the different hats that you have at the radio station, or maybe even someone that's interested in joining into radio, what is one piece of advice that you would give to someone either interested in radio or fulfilling a program director role or being an on-air personality? I'm sure there's a lot of different things you can give advice to, but what is your best piece of advice?
Oh man, that's a good question. I would say kind of like what I just said to you, like, if you're interested in it, like, don't be afraid to reach out to people and make connections. So a lot of times, it is kind of who you know in some way. And, maybe you get in on a promotions level at a radio station and you go out to events and you drive the truck and you like set up the tent and whatever. And then don't be afraid. I actually just met someone at the college radio station that I helped found. I said, like, she works in promotions at a station, and I'm like, hey, like, see who you can talk to about learning how to run the board or learning how to maybe not even get on air, right? But, talk to people. And I know it's hard sometimes and you don't want to, or you're too busy or you're doing other stuff, but, try to make connections. And that could be as easy as, and you find them in the elevator. We actually did this when I was in college. We literally did an elevator pitch. And then one day at my other radio station, I was in the elevator with the program director of the pop station. I gave my little elevator pitch, and he emailed me. He was like, hey, do you want to do, it was like 3 a.m. to 10 a.m. on a Sunday, but he remembered me and reached out. Same thing online, reach into those DMs, cultivate a relationship with someone that you admire or you are interested in what they do, whether it's at a radio station or a record label. Just see if they'd be open to chat or ask questions. Just be kind, be nice, but generally people do love to talk about what they are doing, and I think it's great to bring in new people. Be open. Some people might not feel that way, but don't be afraid to kind of ask around and see what else you can do, and use that as leverage to end up where you want to be eventually.
I like how you said that too, elevator pitch. Like, I wouldn't have never thought about how much time it actually takes for you to ride the elevator, but like, you really have to hone in on that.
Yeah, they made us ride up and down an elevator one day in college, and we all got really motion sick, but like it was like literally we were up and down. And then I remember I messaged a bunch of people that were in that class with me. I'm like, I made a real elevator pitch. It was great though. It was like, seriously, like, I'm like, this is smart. It really helped me kind of hone in on like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I want to do. Here's what you can do to help me. How can we connect? Having that ready.
I feel like I need to make a world. Well, we have other worlds that are elevator related, where you're waiting in an elevator, but like that's an endless elevator. Like if just call it the elevator pitch.
No, it has to end of it. You have to, right. End. Oh my God.
That's so good. I love that. What are a couple of our new artists that you're listening to currently that we can get to explore?
Yeah, I really enjoy what Sammy Virgie is doing. He's kind of coming out of the UK. He's played some big festivals here in the US. Does sort of the drum and bass jungle stuff. He's just fantastic. He has a new Earth song that we're playing on C895 called Nostalgia. That's just really good. I really am excited to see what he's doing. He's also working on the new Kaisa, who did Hideaway like 10 years ago. That was her big track. And he helped produce her new one, which is also great. I also have just recently come across an artist. I think her name's Underscore. She has a track called Music that like I heard the other day. I talked about it earlier today on one of my phone calls. Really exciting. She's on the same label as Porter Robinson, Mom and Pop. That I'm like, this is cool. And then also another artist on that label is Salute. He's really doing some cool stuff as well. I haven't had a chance to support him yet on C895, but I hope that I can because he's just like really cool.
See, you made the mistake of saying the trigger word, which was Porter Robinson. Literally two-thirds of everyone in here love Porter. And we also have someone in here who DJs by the name of Naku, who has created the Nurtured Festival in VRChat, where there are worlds that are simulations based off of Nurtured. And
world
in world, yeah, and then you get to experience what it's like on the cover, and he's performed in here before too. That was the kind of the cool thing is
I believe it.
Yeah,
he would seem like a type. I saw him in November, and it was insane. It was so good. It was so good.
I actually talked to Naku about this earlier because of the fact that I was just like, so you're making these festivals? Have you heard from Porter? And he's like, no. And it was, I think, the recent one he ended up getting something from him or getting a tweet or something from it. So we're like, we made it. It took several years, but we're there.
That's awesome.
What are 3 top DJs that we should be looking forward to in 2025?
Whoa! Oh my goodness! Oh, see now, and then I forget every DJ I've ever heard ever. Oh my goodness! Okay, I would say Sammy Virgie, really exciting. I saw him in live a few months ago, and I was super impressed. Who else DJ wise? I'm just thinking of like locally, we have some really fantastic local Seattle DJs. There's a great, he leans a little more bass, but Native Boy, I talked about him at Winter Music Conference, and it's N8V BOY. He's from the Yakima Nation here, but lives in Seattle. He's fantastic. I'm actually playing his new record on C895. And then I do have a friend up in Alaska. Her name is Rain Essex. I was thinking of her old name, but she's putting together some pretty fun stuff. She hasn't DJed as much lately, but she's working on an EP, and she's very nerdy. Like she would love all of this probably. I don't know if she's aware of it or not. I should ask her, but she does some cool stuff as well. And yeah, there's just some great local Seattle people that I think are really killing it. So
see, that's what I'm saying. We got to try to get some more DJs in here and get some more people to come in here and party. Because again, we're open 24 hours all the time all across the world.
Yeah.
So
I'll talk it up for sure because they would be fantastic. Like Alfonso Tan's a really great DJ here in Seattle. Dark Cheesemate, she's super great. Frida K is awesome as well. So we got them. They're here. We just got to get them in there.
That's true. So. Absolutely. And before we get on out of here, where can we find you and C895 on the internet?
Yeah, so on the internet, C895 is at C895 Radio on social media. I know we had our website on the screen on Twitch I saw, but c895.org. You can also donate there if you're interested. That's a whole part of what we do as well. And then pretty much everywhere I'm at Harmony Soleil on Instagram, Blue Sky, formerly of Twitter, RIP. But yeah, it's a great spot to find.
What are your thoughts on Threads?
I'm trying. I don't know. I'm on there occasionally. I remember it exists, and my brain still wants to tweet. Like I think of things, and I miss it so much. So I gotta pick one and get into it. But I'm on Blue Sky too, and I am on.
I've been seeing a lot of people going back to Threads, and I'm just like, there's too many to think too much about.
Exactly, but the station's on there as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're there.
Well, yep. Harmony, thank you so much for coming by on the show, and of course, we'd love to have you back here to talk more nerdy VR technology and stuff. I'm
in anytime. Just have me back, and I'll I don't know, work on a different avatar or something maybe.
Yeah. We can help you with that too. I mean, obviously, I made her, so I mean that's always a very fun thing to do. But
great. Well, thank you.
So that's going to be doing it for us, our VRCDJ Live, and thank you guys for coming in by for the show. And of course, we're going to have a highlight for you up on YouTube tomorrow, as well as the full show for you available on Sunday. Of course, all of that's going to be available to you up on X and Blue Sky, and you could follow all of us using the link tree provided for you from our staff up there at the link tree /VRCDJ Live. A couple of some housekeeping that we have to do before we get on out of here. Some very important housekeeping to get to. The one thing that I didn't get to showcase with everybody on social media is tomorrow, as part of our recent conversation, Project Community Fest 2025 is kicking off tomorrow, going until July 6th. And if you haven't known too much about it, it's a massive, massive convention here in VR, showcasing lots of people within our community, not just music-wise, but if you were looking to join a community or joining a group or get to know a little bit more of all sorts of fun things that you can do within virtual reality, you're definitely going to want to check out Project Community Fest. We, as a staff, VRCDJ Live is going to be broadcasting live on remote. See, we do remotes here too. We're going to be live on remote tomorrow, and we're going to be live here on Twitch. So if you want to join us, we'll be in a public instance. So we have a couple of special guests joining us tomorrow as well. So please come on by and talk music with us, talk rave stuff with us, talk community with us, anything VR. We're going to be hanging out between the hours of 5 and 9 p.m. Eastern time. That's going to be happening tomorrow. Now, for the big news that everybody is always looking for at the end of every month here on VRCDJ Live, is our lineup for July. And drum roll, please. Very, very cracked out lineup for July, and we're very pleased to not only have a lot of special guests on for July, but we are dubbing it our industry month, just as we've had Harmony Soleil from C895 join us for our industry. And for July, we've definitely got a lot of people joining us here on the program next week. And we got to start promoting it very quickly. But we're going to be actually joined by Tupper and Straz of VRChat. The developers of VRChat will be joining us on the program here, talking about our community, talking about the raves, talking about how what we're looking forward to in the future of VRChat. Of course, we can't just go ahead and talk about Virtual Market without having Mr. Virtual Market himself, Lun, joining us from Hickey and Virtual Market now the following week, as we get to break down some more club related items, virtual reality, as well as VRChat Real that just happened out in Japan, showcasing our community as well as the VTubers as well. And of course, within virtual reality, you can't have virtual reality without the virtual reality show. Fia Bunny will be joining us here on the program the following week to discuss all of the plans that she's got going on in VRChat, as well as Club Bunny, the kind of the new club scene in the raves that she's been putting together as well. And we might be joined by a special guest on that program as well. Following at the end of the month, we'll be joined by Brother White Mage of MomoCon. He is the rave director over at MomoCon in Atlanta, Georgia, featuring a convention of a size of 32,000 people. So if you've ever wanted to learn how to DJ for an anime convention, pop culture convention, or that kind of an idea, that is going to be what you're going to be needing to watch at the end of July. Cracked out lineup, our usual. We'll have more information for you up on Blue Sky and on X as well. Lots of very fun information. A very busy month for us here on VRCDJ Live. So, for Harmony Soleil, the program director of C895, the staff of VRCDJ Live, I'm Rob Roman. Thank you guys so much for coming by, and we will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.